Welcome to the pod. This is the AI powered inbox where we look to make AI accessible for email marketers and lifecycle marketers. I'm your host. My name is Adam Bianco. I'm the founder and chief strategist at Off Trail Marketing. And today we're going to talk about how one person created a QC tool using AI for their company. Zero code required in doing so. With me today is Colin Bonnett, the senior manager of lifecycle marketing at Going. Colin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
Full disclosure, my wife works at Going. She runs operations over there. She had the inside scoop. She says one of our lifecycle marketers is doing something really, really cool, but in its own tool. And I was intrigued. But Colin, before we get into that, just how did you end up at Going? How did you end up in lifecycle marketing? Just walk us through that a little bit.
So I didn't take the most direct path to get into lifecycle marketing. Interesting enough, I got a degree in chemical engineering. I was doing chemical engineering work at a consultant firm for a few years before I decided that it actually wasn't for me. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. I decided I wanted something that had a little bit more creativity in it, but still
There's
had
not that much creativity in chemical engineering.
it's kind of, you're going either into the research section and you're doing a lot of research, which I did research in college as well. And I realized that wasn't going to be for me. So I was like, I know I'm not getting my doctorate. That wasn't what I was going to go for. And then a lot of times you're just kind of like keeping the systems running. If something's off balance, you're just kind of, you add, decrease the temperature here, add the temperature there, make sure that you're using the right equipment for everything. You're mostly a lot of times you're working at chemicals and stuff. At least that's what I was doing with the consulting firm, and I was working with those type of people. So it wasn't the type of creativity, I guess, that I was hoping for at that time. So I quit my job, and I knew I wanted to live in Denver, Colorado. So I just moved out there, and I got a part-time job in customer support at a company called Ibotta. Working there for a few months, they had an opening for technical marketing position to onboard something called AppBoy, which is now called Braze. And it was all about sending email campaigns and push notifications and in-app messages and things like that. So I applied and they gave me a shot and I got the job and I've been working it ever since. And I made that move, I think it was October 2015 or so. So it's been about 10 years I've been in lifecycle marketing specifically.
Yeah. I can't imagine there are too many chemical engineers in marketing in general, but lifecycle marketing in particular. It's a fairly unique path to go from the chemical engineering side to marketing.
Yeah, I met only one other person to do something similar at my last job. Right between Ibotta and Going, I worked at a place called Transforce, and our head of product also used to be in chemical engineering. He had a degree in chemical engineering, and he made a switch to product. But that's the only other person I know of that's kind of made that journey.
Okay. Well, the journey landed you at Going,
Yes.
formerly Scotch Cheap Flights, for those who are maybe a little more familiar with the previous name. But for those that aren't familiar with it, what
Going is the best place to go to find cheap flights, right? For wherever you're trying to travel. If you're traveling across the US, you're traveling to Europe, wherever you're going is the place to visit to find it, right?
Nice. Yeah, the desktop mobile app, we've used it for most, if not all of our trips, and we've done some big ones in the past. And so much of the company has been email based in the past, correct? So what you've come up with is something that you all use, I imagine, quite frequently.
Yes, absolutely. When Scott first created it, it was 100% email, right? He started by, he found these flights through, he was a journalist beforehand. He was doing research on flights and pricing and things like that. He found some amazing deals. He told his friends about it. They were curious. So he started emailing them as he found these great deals. And then it just started gaining traction and more. And then all of a sudden he had to pay server base to be able to email all of these people that wanted it. And he started, and then it just kind of went from there.
Once you start incurring costs, then the business is born.
Exactly. So at one point it was only email and that was it. There was no website. There was no app of any kind. So those are relatively new in the business.
Okay. So then what brought you to creating this tool? What problem were you trying to solve? What was the motivation?
Yeah. So when we're building out our tools, we go through a rigorous, QA, QC process. We want to make sure that the emails look good, that we want to make sure that we're sending them to the right people, all that type of stuff. And one of the things I had noticed as building for myself and when other people on the team were building is there was a lot of back and forth on with the design team during the QC process. There's too much padding in this section. There's not enough padding here between different modules, different sections. So I wanted to reduce that back and forth, right? Like there was so much. And in some scenarios, I mean, we have some campaigns that are very templatized, right? That are, they're the same style. We're changing up images. We're changing up copy. That's about it. Those are set. But our design team is amazing. They're incredible. And they're always coming up with new catchy designs, keeping things fresh and everything. So not everything is fully templatized for us. You know, sometimes we're creating new modules that haven't existed yet, or we're putting two modules together that have never been together before, you know, to keep our emails always looking great. So for those scenarios, you know, you would often see padding mistakes, right? Maybe 5 pixels here or 10 pixels there off. And then differences on mobile and desktop as well, right? We have different padding, you know, when you're looking at on your phone versus if you're looking on your computer. So this whole tool was meant to just solve that. Like, how can we make sure that we can make the padding accurate and correct before we even send it to the design team for the sign off to reduce that one back and forth?
Yeah, I think most marketers can empathize with the endless back and forth that you think should be quick that can take, you might take, hey, this will take an hour or two to finish up, and then it can take sometimes days, if not weeks, with all the different revisions that can come. And then the fact that once you see that something like padding is off, you can't unsee it anymore. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. No one likely will know from like a customer standpoint, but you'll know. You know that it's could be a little bit better, and therefore it won't go anywhere without it.
Yeah, 100%, right? Exactly what you said. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once it goes live to, you know, millions of people, it's like, you know, it's kind of eats you a little bit.
Okay, so you have this problem of just a lot of back and forth that's happening. Why turn to AI? Like, where'd you even think about, hey, AI might be able to solve this for me?
You know, in general, in the last couple years with AI coming out, you know, started using it a little bit more. I was honestly a little bit more hesitant to use it. I wasn't the earliest of adopter with AI, but I kept seeing some coworkers and how it was helping them and the way they were doing it. So I started with some small stuff, and then I started using it a little bit more and more. And I was like, oh, wow, it actually does really help, you know, with my work efficiency. It just speeds some things up for me, right? So much. And when it came down to it, I was like, you know, let's test it. Like, let's see how much I can use AI to build something that I would have no idea how to build, right? Like, I don't know how to code all of that. I know some coding stuff, but not nearly enough to build a website like this or an app that I was trying to do. So it was just kind of like, hey, like, let's try it out. And I saw ads, you know, of or different AI tools claiming, oh, we can build a whole app for you and a whole website. So I was like, let's see what happens.
Okay, so did you talk to your manager? Did you get some internal stakeholders involved? Or did you just say, hey, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens and bring them in later?
No, I just kind of went for it, right? So the first thing I saw, I got hooked based off an ad I think I probably saw on YouTube or something like that for Base 44. And that's what I started with. Went to Base 44. They had a free version. So I just started messing around. I started building it out and seeing what I could do. And I got it to like this small little point of it working. And then I mentioned it to Derek Can, who's our head of marketing. He was actually somebody I knew from the past at Ibotta. He was kind of my connection to going before I moved here, before I came over here. And he's like, oh, Base 44, I never heard of that. It sounds something like Replit. And then he told me about Replit, and he had like free access to it for us because he had an array of some free AI tools that he got through some promotion. So I was like, oh, well, maybe, you know, let me try that out too. And I'll compare the two. I'll compare Base 44 versus Replit. And then at the end of the day, I ended up going with Replit. I actually ended up liking it better. And then I was able to have like an actual premium account with already paid for and all that. That's how it worked out. So started it, told my manager about it afterwards, found a better tool.
Okay. First, Replit, if you want to sponsor the pod, let us know. You're happy to send some dollars our way. So before we get into Replit, let's just talk like the end goal. You kind of talked about the problem, but what's the end goal? And then let's get into how you build it.
So the end goal, like my ultimate end goal is to make it a one-stop shop for all email QC, like this cool tool to help us out with all things related to email QC, see how it's going to be, when it goes to Gmail versus Apple Mail versus whatever, make sure that it matches our design, that there's no spelling issues, anything like that. That is kind of the whole end goal. But the initial goal for it was really just fix this padding back and forth, right? In Slack, our main tool when it comes to like looking at these emails and getting sign off on them from everybody on the team, there's always a long thread in it. And a lot of that thread was based off of this padding. So it's just cutting that down, saving everybody some time and increasing our efficiency in our email builds.
Okay, that's great. I think everyone could probably use that. Everyone can, other marketers out there would love to get that back and forth down. And as you looked into Replit, for those who aren't familiar, what makes Replit unique? How did you decide upon that? I mean, you mentioned your manager told you about it, but why go with that? What makes it unique?
So one, it's simple to use, right? You just talk to it. You just message it and say, this is what I want to do. And it then codes it out for you. It shows you a preview of how it looks. You can interact with that preview. You can say what's wrong with it. You can send screenshots back to the prompt of so it knows exactly what you're talking about. This is the section that's not working for me, help me fix it. And it was pretty quick. Part of the reason I ended up going with Replit over Base 44, and maybe it was because I was using the free version of Base 44. I will give that little note out there. But
You're being
Replit,
very kind.
yeah. Replit was faster. It was much quicker on the iteration, right? When I was testing between the two, Base 44, once it came to uploading the emails, it took, I'd have to wait maybe like a minute or 2 minutes to get the email to upload. And maybe that was something I could have fixed with the coding and like how to improve that process. But Replit, it was seconds. Here's a preview, and then I could talk to it. This isn't working. And it just iterated so fast for me. So I was able to make progress a lot quicker. There's features that I didn't necessarily play with right off the bat, but I kind of found later, right? Like you can add in your own design information, right? Like if you have a specific color scheme that you want to follow, right? If you want to follow your company's color scheme or whatever, you can add that in there. So that way, when it designs it for you, it designs it in the correct color scheme. And it was very simple and easy to use for a non-coder. And then if you want to dig into the code, it's really easy to find it, right? You just open up a new tab inside Replit itself, and you go to the code base and you can just search for anything, any key terms. And you can even ask Replit, where is the code for this function? I've had to do that before.
Nice.
To use it for something else. And it says, oh, you can be found here. And it gives you the direct file path and you find it. And then I was able to use that with another AI tool to fix something.
Well, let's get into it. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see, let's get a peek behind the curtain and let's check out the tool of Replit and of course the QC tool that you put together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you do that, what was your first kind of initial prompt like? I don't even know if you can scroll back to that or just you remember what it is, but was it just something basic? Was it really something in depth? What was it like and how'd that go?
Yeah, I don't think I can scroll all the way back to it because the chat has been so long at this point.
I imagine it might be months ago.
But I kind of asked for the moon right off the bat. I was like, hey, I'm trying to build an email QC tool. I want to be able to upload emails to it and also send an email directly to it. I wanted to be able to check padding between all the different sections and be able to call out what doesn't match our style or our different things. I need to be able to look at it on desktop versus mobile, and build that thing, right? And I did that, and I did this for both Base 44 and Replit. And they both failed miserably on their first shot. I didn't learn my lesson after Base. It's, sure, it built it and it made it look like the outline and it had all the buttons for there. And here's the section to email itself. Here's the section to upload, but nothing actually worked, right? Like it gave you an email to email, didn't actually work. It gave you a way to upload file, didn't work. And then it was trying to fix each thing after a little while. And eventually I learned to break things down a lot. So that was kind of the first prompt is I laid out everything I wanted this tool to do based off of my initial thoughts, and it tried to do it.
Yeah, I imagine that's where a lot of people, I know myself included sometimes, where sometimes you're excited, you put the moon in and it doesn't give you what you're looking for and you just stop. You end. You get discouraged like, oh, this is not going to work. And what you found, and I think what's an important lesson in all this is that you then took that weren't discouraged, or at least didn't stop you from continuing to move forward. And so I guess where did you go from there, and how did you eventually build a very successful tool? But I guess what happens next?
Yeah. So next I decided I just needed to break this down. All right. I couldn't ask for it to do everything all at once. I tried that also in the beginning of like, okay, these are all the things that are broken, fix all of those things. And of course, it basically did a bunch of stuff and it fixed almost nothing. Right. So I was like, all right, well, let's figure out like if I was building this tool and I actually had to code it out, like, how would I go about, what would be the first thing I did? The first thing I would do is figure out how to upload the file. So then I was like, okay, that's all I'm going to worry about is like, how can we upload this email into this tool? And I wanted to see how it actually looks. So when I download it from Gmail, it downloads as a .eml. So I was like, all right, I need you to accept .eml file and upload it. It does that. Of course, it uploads it and just shows a bunch of code. So then the next step is, okay, now I need you to convert that code to what it should actually look like from a visual standpoint. What does it look like in my Gmail for me? So then I just worked purely on that. And then I followed up with padding or identifying sections within that email and so on and so forth. And I just kind of had to start really small, ask for one thing at a time, and then eventually fixed all those little problems.
Okay. And so what kind of technical challenges did you experience during that? Anything that, so you're, a little bit of code, but you're not a coder. I think a lot of marketers can resonate resonate with that. Anything that felt like you were out of your depth on?
Yeah, sometimes it's not knowing exactly, it's broken, but you don't know how to ask the right way of how to fix it, So like I could show a screenshot saying, hey, this still isn't working. This isn't working. And it'll go through and be like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. It's fixed. And then you go try it and it's like, no, it's not. It's still just as broken as before. And sometimes it'll break something else in the meantime. So then it was about learning to ask questions. Ask a question. Okay, how is it right now in the code? How is this feature working? Not like what's it supposed to do, but like what's the logic say? And then it will tell you what the logic is. And sometimes you can read through that and be like, okay, I understand in the plain English logic how that's not working, right? You're making assumptions that you shouldn't be making, right? You're not understanding what a section actually is. Like when I was trying to identify sections, it was just highlighting everything constantly. It was like this is one section. And it's like, no, that's just the whole email, right? And then you'd break in and it's like, okay, well, I know in HTML we define headers this way a lot of times. We define backgrounds like this. So it's like, okay, this is how you need to change the logic. And I can explain that in plain English to it. And then it transfers that back into the code. So that was also a big lesson is like ask questions about how it's doing. And you can sometimes see its flaw in its own logic.
Yeah. And I always like with AI of just asking what I need to tell it for it to improve. That's always just kind of just fascinating to see the response because it can tell you, it knows what it needs, and it can tell you what maybe you're missing, or to your point, what's wrong with it. For those that are listening and not watching, you have your screen up. We're seeing the tool. Walk us through what we're looking at.
Yeah. So this is the tool that it created for me. Not everything on here actually works. Like I said, when I asked for the moon, like I built all these sections. I haven't gone through and fixed every single one of these sections just yet. But basically, the main thing is there's an area to upload your email right here. Then there's a section that stores the emails that you've uploaded and tested, at least recently. You can delete them as you need. There is a section to be able to create some standard configurations. This is something that's still being worked on. It's not in the live version. It's just in this test version that I'm showing you right now, for example. And then, we can go through the tool and I'll show you exactly how it all works when we upload and test everything. But there basically will be a section that displays the email and shows all the padding and identifies the sections and everything that, it was initially designed to do.
Let's do it. Can we put it into action? Can we upload something?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so the very first thing you need to do is you need to download your email. And the way I have this set up is to actually download from Gmail. So I have an email already pulled up. This is
a Dublin Mistake Fair.
Dublin Mistake Fair, yes.
Nice.
This is an email that recently just updated. This is a new style for mistake fairs. So I was building this recently, testing it out anyways. Airlines make mistakes just like everybody else. Sometimes we send out an email and maybe there was a typo in the email. Airlines can do the same thing. They can put a typo. They can accidentally put a 2 where it should have been a 5. It could have, maybe it was supposed to be $530 and they accidentally put $230. We catch these things. We send them out to our users. They often don't last long, right? I mean, we have book within less than 12 hours because a lot of times they catch their mistake fares within a day. So we try to alert you. We have people constantly looking at airlines and all the flights that they're doing and seeing if anything stands out, like, oh, this was a mistake. They didn't mean to send this deal to Dublin for this price, right?
So what you're saying is, if I understand this right, someone made a mistake along the way, should have been $500 something. You find it, you exploit it, and hopefully that person's still employed, and the travelers are the benefit of it all.
Absolutely, because they have to honor it. Even if they made a mistake, they still have to honor it because it was posted live, unless they change it back before you book it.
Yeah. Well, it's the system that made the mistake, not any person. The system made the mistake, and people could have gotten this. This lasted, less than 12 hours. So these things go quick.
Yes, they do. They very much do go quick.
Okay, so this is a great example of the fact that you need to move quickly. There's a mistake fare that happens. These things last less than 12 hours. But in the process of what you have at the company, you need to QA, QC this thing, and there's not enough time to go back and forth 5 times. You need to do this fast. So this is a great example of, we're using this tool to get this out the door within potentially minutes that you find out about.
Oh yeah, this is when we find it, goes into our back system, populates the email, sends it, right? This is kind of, we take the time to build out the template, make sure it's always going to look good, sends the information right away. And if you have the app, you'll find it even faster because, push notifications, right? I don't know about you, but I see the push notification on my phone well before I see my email. So for something like this, those minutes, those hours, they matter.
For sure.
So once you're here, the way this kind of works is I come in here, I download this email. I'll download to my file.
Which a lot of people probably didn't know you could do. But for those that this is new, download the EML file, and you can use that in a variety of ways, including uploading here.
Absolutely. All right. That way you don't have to get the HTML necessarily from the tool that you're building. Because, for example, in Braze, we use drag and drop feature, right? So we're not necessarily looking directly at the HTML. There is a way to download the HTML from Braze, but having to download that multiple times from there, I don't know, it's a little bit easier to download it from Gmail and go that route. So choose your file, come in here, it'll show up here, mistake fare, Nonstop Ireland, open, upload and analyze, and then it takes you right to the page. And this is initially just a preview, right? And it shows you have both the desktop and the mobile view, so you can see the difference. But the next thing you need to do is then I just hit identify and measure. And what it's doing is you can see it highlights first, and that's it highlighting all the various sections of like different types of text and background images, headers, whatever. And then it measures the distance between all of those different things. And so you can see there's 16 pixels of padding between this section. There's 48 and 32 there. There's 56, so on and so forth. You can clear the highlighting so you're just seeing, to help reduce some of that information between everything. And then there's even more ways to, it doesn't show distance between everything, but there's ways to kind of manually select and measure as well.
And how do you know if the padding that you see, those numbers that are in front, those are good or bad according to the brand? Is that something like you've memorized, or is that show in this tool?
So right now it's kind of memorization. It is all around just knowing what the distance should be between various sections, between desktop and mobile, but that is what I'm working on. So in the new tool, a section that doesn't exist yet, the standard configurations section will be, these are our standards that we want between various sections based off of, how we do it for desktop and for mobile. Once this is fully live and working, then the plan is that these will highlight maybe in different colors, red, if it doesn't match that style output. So it kind of pops out to you and you can know that, hey, this is wrong, right?
Okay. And you mentioned something along the lines of checking spelling as well. Is that in this part here?
Not yet. No, that is kind of down the line. That is coming eventually. I haven't started that work just yet, but it is what I hope for. Same thing with checking different email clients. Outlook can render things differently than Gmail and Apple Mail and different on iPhone versus Android. I would love to get a previewer in here to be able to see all of that type of stuff, but also down the line.
Yeah, well, if anything, this shows that there's so many different elements to emails in general, and specifically your email here. Padding, spacing, everything is so key because you're having columns, you're having images, buttons, etc. And there's a lot to pay attention to and a lot to figure out. And if you're not looking at it really with a fine-tooth comb, it can look very different from one to the next. And especially if you're sending tens, if not hundreds of these a week, which I think Going does, you need to be able to people need to know where to look. They're very familiar with the look and feel of it all. And if something's off, they'll see it and notice it right away.
Yeah, 100%.
So how long did something like this tool itself, how long did it take to build?
To get out the MVP version, right, which was really this type of level, along with the mobile version as well, probably took a total of 10 to maybe 15 hours of work. It was kind of spread between weeks. It was a project I was doing in between other work. Some weeks I would spend 2 to 3 hours on it, and then sometimes it was like I'd go a week or two without touching it again. But yeah, I would say altogether it was probably somewhere between 10 to 15 hours before getting MVP fully live.
Yeah, and that's, again, good frame of reference for those folks who work on something for like 15 minutes. Again, asking for the moon, you don't get it, and you're like, well, AI is not going to help with this. AI can potentially, but it's going to take a little more time investment than that 15 minutes.
Yeah, you gotta take the time to do a lot of troubleshooting. There was also, like I said, there was a learning curve for myself, right? Asking for the moon and then figuring out how to break it down. I think if I was to completely redo this, I could cut that time period, that full amount of time that it took me to build it, almost in half, just because I would have known the right way to go about it and asking one task at a time, get this one thing to work, and then and knowing to ask questions and get that feedback from the tool. And then also, it took me a while as well to start using additional AI tools. I started using Claude Code as well. When I'd get stuck with Replit, I would be like, okay, where's this code? Let me take that. I'll copy that code, put it into Claude and say, look at this code and tell me why it's not working. And then Claude would be like, oh, these are the issues. And then I could bring it back and explain the issues to Replit based off of what Claude told me. And it sped up a lot of the things. The last thing that I worked on was, for example, comparing very specific sections. So if I wanted to compare and see this padding, creating a section to be able to select this, say hero image 1, check the background and measure from the bottom to the bottom and see, okay, this specific space is 56 pixels. Replit, I could not get Replit to figure this out. And it was asking how the logic was working, all of the other things. I probably wasn't asking the right questions still. But when I asked Claude told me this is what I should be asking. This is the difference in the code. This is how you should change that code. So that was another big learning, is that sometimes you just have to ask a different AI tool, what to do.
Yeah, I use ChatGPT as like my default, but I've started dipping into Claude more and to see the differences asking the same prompts and how either well they do those prompts or the different answers you get back has been just like fascinating to see. And sometimes, to your point, you need to leverage the different tools because one is better than the other at certain things.
Yeah.
So what has been the response like internally? How is it? Like, what are the results? Just what's been the feedback since you've shared it with the team as a whole?
Really positive feedback. Everyone in the email side, I was building things, really, really loved it. They've all used it, and we've seen definitely a significant decrease in back and forth. When asking, some of the team how much it saved them on the build side, it saves a couple hours a week. And on the design, and then on the design time, which they're just, and then responding, these are the errors that I'm seeing. They say that it saves them about roughly an hour a week of having to kind of just slack back and forth and reapprove and say where the padding issues are and stuff like that. So it's definitely been a real time saver. It's, it's the, 10 hours or so of building it has already very much paid off in the amount of time it's saved. everybody on the team.
Yeah. And does everyone on the team use this on a week in, week out basis for the most part?
Yes, for the most part. If it is a week where it's kind of like nothing new in design, like we are kind of, it's mostly some newsletters and no big new designs are out, then, maybe that week they don't use it because we have templates for those things. But it's pretty standard. Like we are using it definitely on average, we're using it on a weekly basis, I'd say.
All right. So there's a lot here. You've gotten some great feedback on it all. What's next? You've already kind of mentioned that there's some other areas that you're still looking to fine tune whenever you have a free moment, which I know is tough to come by this time of year. But what is next for this tool?
Yeah, so the first next thing is I'm currently working on creating workspaces. So I'm building a database in there, and Claude Code has been really helpful on organizing this and telling me exactly what order I should be asking Replit for this next part and like what I should build, like database first, workspace, etc. So next, once the workspaces are set up so you can create different accounts, I can create a Going account. Maybe I can make this live for other people so other companies could use this as well and create workspaces for themselves, and then create that configuration standards. So for each workspace, so we have a Going version, and then maybe another company has their own standards that they want to follow, and so on and so forth. That is the immediate one. Trying to get it to a place like that so we could potentially launch it live and maybe make a little money off of it. Think that would be a really cool thing to do. And then keep adding on to it. Like I said, I want to make this a one-stop shop for QC. I want to be able to click on something and be able to tell the font is wrong here, the font size is incorrect. Like this is the font size for all header 1s versus header 2s. You're using the wrong styling, colors in whatever sections, and then being able to see how it looks on different email clients. What does it look like on Gmail versus Outlook, and so on and so forth. That is kind of my long-term goal. I'm going to keep working on it until it can be our spot where it's like we uploaded here and it gives a green check for like, padding, for fonts, for copy, for everything. And then here's your red or here's your yellow. And like, these are the things to look at and check out to speed up the QC process as much as possible.
Well, it's been so great seeing what's behind the scenes, seeing this in action. I know as an email marketer with our clients, every single one is unique, from the brands to the fonts to what they're looking for padding wise. So something like this is definitely something that I know I'd be curious about. So yeah, we'll see how things continue to evolve. Let's switch gears to our lightning round questions. Few final questions at the end to get your take on before we get you out of here. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What is something misunderstood about lifecycle marketing? I think there's potentially a lot, but in your opinion, what do you think?
I think there's a misunderstanding on how much technical work can actually go into lifecycle marketing, especially the more personalized an email is. So in Braze, for example, we use something called liquid logic, and that's how you personalize the message. So for us, I mean, when we send you an email that says, "Hi, Adam," I'm not in there typing, "Hey, Adam," "Hey, Joe," "Hey, Jane," or whoever it might be, right? Like you're using liquid logic to personalize it. For the deals that we send you, there's a bunch of coding that's involved in there on the email side of liquid logic to say, okay, I need to see what your home airport is, right? Because I want to highlight the home airport deal different than just general followed airports, right? Because that's the most important one to you, most likely, because that is the airport you go to the most often. So I need to put in logic and say, out of all the deals we're about to send you, which one is going from the home airport? Let's show that up here. Now look at all these other deals. Which ones are going from your followed airports? Show those here. And then knowing how to loop that through so it shows the same thing. I mean, on the general email of code, there's just one box that just shows, airport, our price, normal price, things like that. That has to be repeated over and over again. And you have to write in that type of logic to be able to do that and show that. And I think a lot of these companies, when you're just getting these emails with recommended products to you, I mean, they're all doing something like that to make sure that it loops properly. It's showing the right amount. It's looking based off of your individual needs. And there's more technical work in that than you might expect.
Yeah. What people see is the very end product that hopefully is very personalized to them. What they don't see is all the different areas that are personalized, or the fact that they may not even qualify for a whole bunch of things, and they're seeing maybe 20% of the final product because that's what they are segmented against. Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Any hot takes on email? Any sort of trend that is overrated or maybe underrated?
That's an excellent question. Oh, when it comes down to it, when it comes to trends, overrated or underrated, and at the end of the day, as long as the tactic is working and you're seeing results, I think that's the most important thing. I think the thing that really comes down to it is it bothers me if people aren't testing or if they're testing incorrectly. For example, sometimes people are doing testing and they're doing too much in the test, and then you don't know what's actually working in there, right? So let's say you have email A versus email B, and you have copy A and you have design A. And then for email B, you change the copy and you change the design completely. And sure, you might send it out and be like, okay, email B did better than email A, but what about it? Was it the design? Was it the copy? Or was it specifically the combination? And
Yeah.
people, I think, sometimes you need to make it simple, right? Let's have the same design and just change the copy. And then you can have a version C if you really want to that has the new copy and the new design. And, you can compare all three more properly. And then the last thing is or the next thing at least, is people don't always take the proper learnings from those different tests. It's like, okay, cool. B was the winner. And then they kind of move on. It's like, okay, but did you take the learnings? Like, what about the copy? How should that impact the rest of your emails that you're sending to users? Was copy more playful? Was it more straightforward? Was it short and sweet compared to? And another great thing about AI now is I'll go to AI and I'll be like, this was copy for A, this is copy for B. Analyze them and explain the differences to me, in a short,
Yeah.
simple way. Put some type of style or persona behind this type, and then moving forward, I know, okay, this is the style I should be using, because this was the winner. And I've seen a lot of times people running tests and they're not making the test clear, and they're not taking learnings from the tests. And in some scenarios, they're just not testing at all. They're just like, I think this looks great. Let's just send it.
Yeah. The whole testing infrastructure can be broken and varies so widely from company to company. I oftentimes feel that people need to go back and take ninth grade science a little bit and just focus on the scientific method, go one variable at a time. Because to your point, if you have so many, that's a whole new email and you can only take so much from that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. You work at a travel company. Where's your favorite place that you've traveled?
I would say it was Greece. I went there for my honeymoon a couple years ago, and it was incredible. Beautiful, beautiful beaches, great history. Oh, I like just the history there.
Yeah.
And the food was insane. We went to Athens, Santorini, and Crete, and each one was just absolutely incredible. We plan on eventually going back again. It was just so good. We dream about the food there. The food was insanely good. It was good.
This is a great advertisement. We have never done Greece or that just peninsula as a whole. We'd love to do that. And so that is on the short list here in the near future, if all goes well.
I definitely recommend checking it out. It is really cool.
Yeah. On the list. I love it. Okay. Serious question. Question of the day. What is your go-to pizza topping?
Oh man, I mean, pepperoni and mushroom is my go-to.
Good combo. How do you feel
Yeah,
about the hot honey on the pepperoni?
I haven't tried the hot honey on the pepperoni before. I should
Okay.
give it a go.
It's
But
it's worth experimenting if you're
okay,
into it.
okay. Another thing I know, my wife really likes is pepperoni and pineapple, which I know pineapple is always kind of like that.
Now we're getting divisive. I'm a huge pizza guy, and pineapple is not a forbidden fruit for me on the pizza. It's solid every once in a while. Not my go-to, but I know a good Hawaiian pizza hits
Yeah,
from
it
time
can
to
be
time.
refreshing, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Colin. I appreciate you joining the show. It's been so great getting to know you and seeing what you're working on. For those that want to keep an eye on things, how can we follow you?
Yeah, so I might be unique with marketing. I'm not really on social media of any kind. I don't have Instagram or TikTok, or I do have LinkedIn. I'm not very active on it, but you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn at any point.
That I think that's generally a good thing. There's probably too many people that are trying to be experts and influencers. Maybe I am that with the podcast, but we all need people that are behind the scenes doing the work and getting some things done, which you have been doing in spades over the past probably several years, if not several months, with this tool. So congrats. on
Thank
it and the success of it. We're excited to see where it all goes. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you next time.
you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.